Sorry I couldn't come to class, there were gunshots right outside my apartment. Ask Reddit on Reddit Rundown. Teachers of Reddit, what is the most depressing thing a student has told you about their home life? I kept having this kid come and sleep in the first period. I mean, that's normal for high school. One day I made pancakes as a treat and the kid didn't sleep. They ended up staying up and ate 6 pancakes. Later the kid told me they often don't eat breakfast because their parents don't buy food. When they have extra money, it goes to buying alcohol. After hearing that, I went and bought breakfast foods and left them out for anyone to take. The kid didn't sleep after that. Edit, I didn't think this would blow up. But I wanted to clarify, the parents didn't qualify for food stamps or any help because they made too much money. At least it looked like they did on paper, but really, they didn't. I lived in the Bay Area at the time, and even though they made a lot, most of the money went to rent and living expenses. They also generally seemed to make bad choices, not judging them, but it seemed kids came last often. I think one thing that came from the pandemic that is good is the free food that many schools are handing out. It's wonderful to see. In the past, our district would still offer meals in the summer to any kid under 18 who showed up to summer school even if not attending. Continued, someone mentioned these parents should be judged. I agree, they sound horrible. But one thing I keep in mind when working with kids is trauma is multi-generational. We don't know what impacted these parents to behave this way. Personally, my mother grew up very poor and in an abusive home. Her parents had gone through the Holocaust and it really impacted them. They didn't know how to be parents and struggled with mental health issues in a time that didn't really provide support / had negative stigma of mental health. So, this trauma was passed on to my mom. My mom was a good mom but wasn't always there for us emotionally because of her own attachment style she developed from her parents. So, the trauma was passed on to us. Now that I am a parent, I have to work super hard not to pass on the negative things I learned from my parents, but changing behavior can be hard. I am not making an excuse for this kid's parents. Something I learned while studying psychology, my BA is psychology, is trauma passes through generations. I had a teacher once say something I always keep in mind when working with students: kids can impact and change parents' behavior. Parents' behavior and personality can change because of the child as well. Not saying this kid lead the parents to drink, but rather having a kid who has special needs, doesn't bond with you the way you wanted, or doesn't behave how you expected them to, can really impact you as a person. His parents would only give him a pillow and blankets for his bed if he had all A's. I contacted the school counselor and it was true, along with the fact that all of the food was locked away and he was only given specific amounts per day. Per DCFS, this was not considered abuse. I made a deal with him that as long as he was doing his best, his grade would never drop below an A. He teared up. I had a girl playing with something while sitting at the carpet, rolling it back and forth and putting it in her mouth and taking it out and rolling it around again. I told her to give it to me when the other students started their independent work. She gave me this large green pill. At recess I asked her about it and she says her mom and dad give her and her siblings one of every night to make them sleep. I take the pill to admin and tell them what she told me before searching Google Images to find out what it could be. I find a short list and go back to admin and I'm told it isn't my job to worry about that. I try several times that day to get answers and they say they think it's melatonin, so stop overstepping my place. This girl and her siblings are in and out of foster care and come to school with no food and filthy clothes. She came to school in a sweatshirt covered in dried blood 3 days in a row. Her parents wouldn't even sign the papers to get the kids the free school lunches. I forged the mom's signature every month. My mom taught in a very low-income school and every year would go to the dollar store and pick up Christmas presents for all of her students. She knew that many of them didn't get any other gifts for the holiday. She also had stories about how they needed to be careful when constructing standardized tests because there were students who might answer a question like "What do you do when you're hungry?" with "go to bed" or similar things. Every week, I'd let students earn raffle tickets which would potentially allow them to choose a prize, such as bringing in a show and tell, or picking a prize from my treasure chest. Anyways, one day, a student brings in her favorite doll. This leads all the girls to start talking about their favorite dolls. One student privately tells me that she never had a doll before. This made sense because the child was homeless, wore the same dirty outfit nearly every day, Often stole from teachers and classmates because she became adapted to survival of the fittest mode, and her parents were out of the picture. That night I went to Toys R Us right after school. The next week I made sure this girl won a prize and stocked my treasure chest with a brand new teacher and student Barbie set. Well, this child picked the Barbie right away. The most touching part about this story was when she asked if she could show and tell her new Barbie. I said sure. At the beginning of her show and tell she introduced the student Barbie as her name and the teacher Barbie as being my name. I was so touched. I had a girl miss several lessons last term. I was concerned about her progress in class and followed up on the absences. Next time I saw her, we had a wee chat and she said she was really struggling with home stuff. The following day, she appeared very early with a letter and asked me to read it after she left. The letter stated that she was unable to tell her story out loud, but she wanted me to know. Her story detailed a difficult home situation. I have redacted the details out of respect for the pupil, as I had no idea this would become so popular and well read. It completely floored me. I had lessons starting in 15 minutes, but I couldn't stop crying. It felt awful that this strong, silent young girl could brave coming to class with the weight of this on her shoulders. So, we worked out how to make school feel safer for her. She struggles to be around lots of people and near doorways without a trusted adult nearby. She's terrified that he appears in school to take her. So, we spend our break and lunch in my class, playing games and watching silly videos on YouTube. If she has a bad day, I'll walk her to her bus. I make sure she's seated away from the door and nearby a friend or my desk. It's not much, but every little bit helps her feel safer. Had one young man who had strange round markings on his arms I couldn't figure out. Looked little bit like vaccine scars. Figured maybe some scarification thing from his culture I didn't know about, live in a melting pot country. We had a pretty good relationship, so I asked him. Nope. Cigarette burns from when he was a baby that had grown up with him. Got a message today about why a student could not come to class yesterday. Sorry I couldn't come to class, there were gunshots right outside my apartment and I thought I was going to die. The police did come eventually and I had to give a statement. I will get the work from yesterday done today. Thanks. Yay, you get that extension. Taught at an inner-city charter school. Had a bright 6th grade girl who started sleeping during my classes, which was not like her. When I asked after school what was up, she told me that her family, her, 2 younger sisters, and crackhead mom, moved into the homeless shelter, and the last time she slept through the night, all their stuff got stolen. 5-year-old girl was crying at the lunch table. I tell her she's going to see her mom soon and it's okay. I don't know her very well at this point. She goes, "My mom's in jail." So, I quickly go, "Your dad, then?" And she goes, "He's in jail, too." Her twin sister says, "We live with our grandma." I'm about to cry at this point, so I ask if they need anything. Can I get them anything? They ask for candy. I always carry caramels in my purse because these are safe candies and the kids love them and know I have them. I gave them each a handful of caramels and sat with them until their grandma came an hour later. We colored together. They each saved caramels for their grandma. I'll never forget those 2 little girls. I work with significant disabilities and autism in an elementary school, and we have one student who at the end of the day when we say it's time to go home almost always piped up time to go home and to bed. We get out of school at 2 p.m. As I understand it from a coworker who knows someone who worked with the family since he has a younger brother, where toddlers' mom sends them both to bed immediately and, we're guessing here, they lay in bed and watch YouTube on tablets. The younger brother actually has mild leg deformities because he was never allowed out of his crib to walk as a toddler, so his legs are bowed. And before someone asks, no, this is not enough for CPS to do anything. Edit. Bonus time, fair warning, don't read if you have a weak stomach. Have another student, who also has a brother in another class in the same situation, who comes to school with pants so tight it's like the old Victorian era women needing their maids to put a boot in their back to get their corset closed. First day we comment to mom. But eventually we're like, okay, they broke AF, we're just going to leave the button undone and it's not too bad. Well, one day brother eats poop. Literally reaches into his pull-up, they are 8 and 10 BTW, and grabs some and chomps down while walking at recess. Happened too fast for us to grab him. So, we are pretty alarmed and call mom. Response? I told y'all to keep his pants buttoned. This woman puts pants on them so small that some of the paras physically do not have the strength to button them. Instead of taking the time to teach her kids a damn thing. They also don't know how to feed themselves. To be clear, one of them is doing math. They aren't low functioning enough for these skills to not exist. Neither of them is capable of responding to a verbal question in any way either. Like the one brother can point to an answer or point to what he wants, but neither of them can speak and neither of them know how to shake their head, thumbs up / down, anything. The sad truth in this demographic is that their disability is rarely what holds them back. It's the parents. Both sets of brothers I spoke about here would likely be in resource classrooms if their parents were worth a damn. Well, one of them likely not, but the other three for damn sure. The little boy who stays in bed is in first grade and is the highest academically of all our SD/A kids, first fifth of all our. A student who I built trust with gave me a letter that detailed the horrific experience he had a few years prior of rape and molestation by his family members. I checked with admin and he was no longer in that environment, and though they didn't know all the details, it was true that he had experienced those things. He just wanted someone else to know, I think, and it's something I'll never forget. Edit. Thank you to all for the kind messages and awards. I'd love to take this moment to add a little more. This child is one of unfortunately many who have shared similar traumas and experiences. My children's students have been raped, molested, sold for sex, beaten, neglected, sold for drugs and more. I choose to work in high needs / low income schools because those kids need us the most. And they need your vote. When you vote, please look at the education views of each candidate. Our children are suffering in this country, and our educational system is very poor. Leaking ceilings, rats, chairs that break when you sit in them, etc., and standardized testing is the worst. Schools that do well get funds. Schools that don't get closed down. But when schools are trying to teach children with that type of trauma and coming from homes that are hurting, there's no way to catch up. These kids who suffer so much deserve so much more. And I am one of many teachers who are there for them. We listen. We take on the weight of their pain. We truly love them. We are the teachers you wish you would have had, but most of us leave the profession before you get that chance. So please vote with your heart and with good knowledge on each candidate. There are many votes you'll be casting, and a straight ticket might eliminate a really good candidate for your local schools. And if you can, consider volunteering at your local school, post-COVID. Kids need people who care. They need adults who can show them the world isn't as dark as it looks to them. Or donate some supplies at any time during the year. They're sorely needed. It's true about us paying out of pocket. And it's true that we don't make nearly enough money to justify doing that. The world is kinda dark, but the kids I've had the honor of teaching are the light. They truly are better than all of us. I don't want to give out too many details, but I've had to fill out 4 CPS reports in my 4 years of teaching. 3 for students that either confided in me or had signs that they were being physically abused, and 1 that was sexual abuse from the child's father. It's honestly the worst part of the job, having to hear and see just the awfulness some kids have to go through. School counselor here. My second year I had a courageous student who suffered from a rare, debilitating disease. She didn't have many friends because she was never in school and always in hospitals. She loved reading though. She brought books with her to the hospital. Unfortunately, due to the disease, her eyesight was now deteriorating, and she knew she would eventually go blind. She cried in my office that she would miss her books, and didn't want to be alone in the dark. I couldn't help crying with her. She transitioned to audio books on her iPod. This was roughly 14 years ago, a time when middle schoolers didn't have smartphones. A year later she passed away. My hope is she's at peace, reading all the books she wants, with other friends she's met. Edit. Thank you for all the awards and comments. If I can pass on anything to all you educators out there, it's this piece of advice I received from a principal many years ago. Be kind to your students. The 7 hours they have in school may be the best 7 hours of their day. We are never certain what goes on in their homes. Taught summer workshops for teens for a few years. These workshops were based on electives and were rather pricey for students to attend. In complete honesty, it was really just bougie summer daycare, and I always felt bad for the teens because admin were super neurotic about the education, so the curriculum was boring as fuck. They're kids, they want to spend their summers having fun, but rich helicopter parents expect differently. One year I had this absolute monster of a kid. He was 13, rowdy, inappropriate, didn't do any work, constantly throwing things around, etc. Admin tried to boot him, but his grandma had begged us to keep him on board. Since they were paying good money, admin agreed under the terms that we just leave him alone. I didn't agree with that at all. No kid should just be ignored, so I didn't. I would always try to encourage the kid's weird jokes and interests and would take him on a walk around the school grounds every day. I always gave back as good as I got with the sass, and he got a kick out of it. We explored weird classrooms and kicked around rocks and joked about whatever YouTube videos he was into. We got to talking and he started to trust me and he told me about his life. His parents both worked in the airline industry and as a result they were filthy rich with homes all over North America, but they were never home. During the school year he was mostly alone with them, popping in here and there, and in the summers they would fly him to his grandma who lives in our dinky city, and she would care for him for the summers before he would get flown out to wherever the fuck his parents were staying for a couple days to pretend they were a loving family. Then the cycle would repeat. He was so aggressively lonely, didn't believe anyone cared about him, and was constantly acting out. He would skateboard all over the surrounding cities. For a couple of summers I would run into him in the weirdest places and weird times. Think outside shitty bars on late Saturday nights, randomly in the huge metro city in the middle of the week, driving by him skateboarding on the side of the highway, etc. He had no one looking after him and no concern for his own well-being and safety. The absolute lack of care or concern for him was heartbreaking, and I tried to do what I could, but ultimately his parents didn't actually break any laws based on his home state rules and regulations, and his parents are, again, filthy rich. He was well provided for, and how nice was it that they sent him to this expensive summer workshop. I still think about him now and then, even though it's been years. I hope he's okay. Thanks for listening to Reddit Rundown. Give a thumbs up and subscribe, and help me get to 1,000 subs. Leave a comment below on what kind of topics or stories you would like to hear. You can also check out other videos on my channel. Thanks and have an awesome day.